Rounding out our discussion on network attacks, let's talk about denial of service attacks. Now, denial of service attacks are basically designed to keep authorized users from using any of the computing assets that they have. This could include the networks and network devices, could be the systems, their actual hosts and servers. It also could be the applications that they use and even the data that they use. Now, denial of service attacks can be sometimes a last-ditch effort if a hacker couldn't otherwise successfully break into a system and steal the data. So they may be frustrated and go ahead and just wage a denial of service attack against a system or a network just to seem like it could be worth it, to make it worth it to them. However, denial of service attack can also be the primary purpose of an attack. If an attacker wants to send a message to an organization or get revenge, simply disrupt operations and so forth, sometimes they'll do that. This may also include defacing a website, for example. A lot of hacktivist groups will conduct denial of service attacks on a network. Now, a distributed denial of service attack is another form of denial of service, and these attacks can take the form of zombie hosts which have been compromised by malware and are under the control of an attacker, and maybe they even become members of botnets, which are huge numbers of computers that are infected. And these botnets and zombies are basically used to wage full-scale attacks on very large networks, enterprise-level networks. Now, these types of attacks requires careful planning, and it requires a lot of compromised hosts, so this would actually happen over time, and it may happen very suddenly. Now, denial of service attacks can be performed on many different levels. There's no limit to the creativity of a hacker to perform a denial of service. You can do a DOS attack on a host, for example, one particular machine. You could also DOS a particular application and make it so the user can't use that application. Maybe it's a client-server application like an SQL database, for example. So they might DOS that network connection to that application and make it so it can't be used. They also may do DOSes against operating systems and take advantage of different flaws in an operating system like the TCP/IP stack that would shut the operating system down. They also may target data itself, and this could be erasing it, deleting it, otherwise corrupting it, and in some cases maybe even encrypting it so that you can't access it. They also may attack network assets and devices, routers, switches, hubs, and so forth, in order to prevent network communications from happening. Now, DOS attacks can be implemented using a lot of different methods: malformed network traffic, crafted packets, and so forth, sometimes even just fantastic amounts of traffic or oversized packets. A malformed packet can do a lot of damage. They may also take advantage of buffer overflows, and they may destroy data. They also may change permissions on data, on folders and files and so forth, so that a user can't use them. They've even been known to use encryption to encrypt data and then hold that data for ransom, so a user would have to pay in order to get access back to that data. Let's quickly look at a typical denial of service attack. We're going to use HPing3 to wage an attack on a Windows box. Okay, I'm in Backtrack and I've got the HPing3 help up. Let's go ahead and just take a look. HPing3 is a popular program. It can be used as a packet crafter and analyzer. So you can actually get a lot of information using HPing3. You can also wage a lot of attacks. So here are just some of the simple, if you will, switches that go with it. You can conduct different types of attacks and so forth. So what I want to do now is go ahead and send a particular crafted packet to the Windows XP box, and I'm going to forge, or spoof rather, an IP address. Our actual IP address is 132, and we're going to send it from 150, and we're going to target it toward port 135 on the XP box, and we're just going to send massive amounts of sends to that box. We're going to do a send flood. Now, in the meantime, we're also going to do Wireshark. Let me go ahead and start the capture here. So we're going to start this Wireshark, and we're also going to ping the box and see what happens when we start getting the box knocked off. See if we can tell when the box starts losing connection. So let's go back over here to our HPing, and I'm going to go ahead and initiate that. And it's not going to give me any replies or anything, but let's look at the capture. Let's see what we're getting. Obviously, you can see we're getting a flood of sends across the network. And notice our source address is 150. And that's not the actual address of the Backtrack box. And the destination is the 129, which is the Windows XP box that we have been using throughout the course. So we're sending this denial of service attack. Now let's switch over to the pings, and we're not really seeing the box go down, and we may not see it. It may be reacting very well to the SYN attack, but we may see delays in the response times because we're flooding the network. Let's go back to the capture here, and again, we're seeing just tons and tons of SYNs, and we're not getting anything back from it. So it's possible it's not able to respond to the SYN ACK the way it should in an appropriate way. So it'll almost never get any progress in terms of connection back to this host because it can't. It's not going to connect back. So obviously we're holding it from connecting on the network and talking, and if there's any other traffic going to or from that XP box, it will either delay it or degrade it. So that's an example of HPing3 and how we basically can conduct an attack on a box. Again, you see the command line here and how it's set up, and you can use HPing3 to conduct all kinds of attacks, UDP floods, ACK attacks, ARP attacks, and so forth.